everybody. My name is Wendy Frazier-Snyder, and I'm coming to you from Cedar Valley High School, our Alpine School District's newest high school. We're located in Eagle Mountain, Utah, which is forever out of town, but we love it. And I was asked to show you some of the cool tricks and tips that we use to design our signage and library promotion materials. As you know, most of us are not really asked to be graphic designers, or we're not trained, I should say, to be graphic designers, but we're asked to be, especially when we're talking about promotion and library signage and things like that. So I just wanted to run through a couple of things and show you kind of my MO on creating these types of documents. So I'm going to pop on over to my Photoshop. And by the way, just so you know, I'm working on a Mac, and I also have some graphics programs. They're enterprise licensed through Alpine School District, but I do use all the Adobe products, InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop tends to be my go-to because you can just modify so much, but certainly when appropriate, I use InDesign as well. So as you can see, there's a document in front of you, and this is probably the pared down quintessential version of the easiest sign to make. So you would open up your graphics program, and what we want to do is we want to start collecting assets. Those assets are basically our typography or our font styles and any kind of images that you would want to use. In this case, what I did is I actually started with just a image. The image I actually acquired from a place called Unsplash. And so why don't we have that discussion now? Let's pop on over to some acquiring assets. And there's a bunch of places to get them. One of my favorites, because it's free, is called Unsplash. There are some rules and regulations regarding attribution, like giving credit to the artist. However, as all of us know in education, there's certainly fair use items and use for education and so forth. But by and large, Unsplash is that stock website that has a lot of beautiful images that artists have chosen to Creative Commons or share with people generally in the public. So let's say we're going to look at library stuff. So I'm just at unsplash.com here, and then I'm going to head to my search bar, and let's just search library just out of curiosity to see what kind of assets we're looking at here. So I head over here, and I bet you will probably find the one that I used. That's close to the one I used. I've used this one before. So what you'll notice is there's a bunch of different types of libraries. If you wanted something to focus on books, we're looking for space too to put some text if you don't want it to be too busy. Like this is a nice one because it has some space at the top here. And what we're going to do is we want to pull that from the internet. This is a nice one with the ladder. Pull that from the internet. To do so, all we do is click on the download button. This is that arrow here. And what it's going to do is it's going to automatically head to our downloads, or if you're on a PC, you may have to go to the downloads file. It does have a little note here that says, hey, say thanks. You can either on socials, give a shout out, or you can attribute it on your document if you prefer. It's not necessary, which is kind of cool, but it's always, the artists are always grateful when you give them a shout out. So there's that. And now you'll notice that my JPEG is located here on the downloads file. I'm in Chrome, so that should be consistent for you. And what I'm going to do is I can either drag it from here onto my desktop, so I have it on my computer, or I can even drag it from here from my downloads to Photoshop, or hover over whatever program you're working with, if it's Illustrator or whatever. So you'll notice it appears in a tabbed area, and now I can start building my image. One of the things that I do want to note is that I do want to make it much more opaque. And so in my layers panel over here, I can push that down and make it a little bit more see-through so it's not so evident, but it still comes through just as a background. So if you wanted to kind of, I'm going to use the word watermarking, but make it a little bit more transparent and less opaque, this is the feature that allows you to do that. And then, quite frankly, the next step is to put text. So we can drag a text box, or we can put a bullet. My text is set at white, and it's pretty small for this image. So I'm just going to make it a little bit larger, and let me make this a little bit quicker for us. So I'm just going to type in 7,200. No, I need 200. So I'm going to see that size, and it looks like my leading and kerning is still not where I would need it. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here. So you'll notice this fake typography comes up. And I want to think about when I'm designing these signs, what type of typography I'm doing. This is just for a library sign that says open and closed. We put these on the doors, especially if like somebody has to go to lunch and we have to close the library, or somebody's not here. We want to explain to our power users that put their head against the window and wish that we were open. We want to put a little note that just says, hey, this is what we're up to. We'll be back in 30 minutes or whatever that is. So you do want to be cognizant of the type of font you use. There are fonts that are designed for specific things. And so you want to pick a font that works well with your branding and messaging, is clear to read, and conveys your message. So on the initial poster, you'll notice that I have some other assets here. Let me make those visible. There we go. So at the bottom of this sign, I have a consistent discover and learn. That's kind of our motto, and then our school logo. And then I just made our font usage something that was very, very easy to read, Century Gothic. And so case closed, meaning we have a really simple font to take a look at. But I did want to speak to you about fonts because let's say we're designing a gaming event or something in the library, or we're designing something for Black History Month, or we're designing something that's a little bit more spontaneous and fun. Well, we actually want to go to a typography website to grab that font to make our customization complete. So some of my favorites as far as fonts go, 1001 free fonts is one of my favorites. You can pop on there. They are all free. There are at least 10,000 fonts now on this website, even though when they got started, there was only 1,001. What is also cool too is you can access all 10,000 of those for $20 if you want to buy the whole canon of fonts. But let's just say I'm going to have a movie in my library, and I'm going to click on Movies TV, and you'll notice that there's some pretty fun fonts. There's Waltography, Jurassic Park, Star Jedi, and these are all font designers that have designed specifically for particular events. A particular style that you could utilize for your particular event. And so there's a lot of really, really fun fonts to grab these. Same mode of operation for grabbing photographs. You do want to double check on the usage though on these sites, because it does, if you're going to use it commercially, meaning to make money for yourself, you can't use these fonts generally speaking, or you have to pay to buy them. But you'll notice free for personal. I interpret that as educational as well, especially if we're learning about it. Waltography, let's say we want that. So we're going to hit download, and it's going to head down to your downloads on a Mac. You might have to go on a PC, but we're going to access that zip file, and embedded in that zip file is going to be either an OTF or a TTF file. And that's what we're looking for so that we can extricate it from the zip file and throw that into our font book that is actually attached to our computer. All right, so it looks like we have our zip file open inside of our downloads. You can see here, we're going to go ahead and double click on that, and you'll notice that it is an OTF and an TTF, so either of those should work for you. It looks like this is more of the capitals, and this is just maybe a different style. So let's double click on that. It's going to ask us to install the font. We can go ahead and double click on that, and it's going to open up our font book, and it's going to add that to our font book. So now when we head back to our graphics program, in our case, it is Photoshop. Let's say we wanted to change up that open sign, and we are going to highlight that. You'll notice we have the capacity to change what style that is. So I'm just going to start typing Walt, and there is our font that we just downloaded. Now, if we wanted it to be fun, we probably would go with that type of font, but essentially to create this poster, all we really have is an image that we've opened up, and then we're just applying text on top of it. Stylistically, yes, but we're just putting font in there. So it's a relatively easy process, and once you have those two steps, images and typography and font together, you can composite it and pretty much create anything you'd like. What I thought I'd do just for AHA is to kind of run through a couple of the signs that we put together. Of course, a variety of graphic design elements. At the beginning of the year, especially because of COVID, we put together a series of posters, and they all had the same template, but they had different information. So how to access Alexandria, COVID procedures, Overdrive Sora app. And so essentially all this really is literally a box, a line, a photograph, because this QR code is a JPEG. And then I just typed information around, put our logo on there, and ta-da, that's basically one of the posters that we put up in the front of our library. We designed and held some lunch and learn, so promotional types of activities. Again, same concept. I have a background here. I've pulled in a couple of images. I made a box and threw in some text for information, logo, of course, for branding, and that was our lunch and learn series that we were hosting in the library. Socials, here's the similar template that you just saw for the Sora, but we wanted to connect. We want students to be able to text us, so we subscribe to Remind. It used to be, if you're an old school teacher, you might have known of it as Remind 101, but it's now just Remind, and we created a quote-unquote class, but we started advertising and having kids text in for book requests to cut down on contact and so forth. Our Insta, Twitter, and YouTube channels, so we could share those. We also designed some leave space floor stickers so that people could, or students would, kind of stay away from one another, but it's thematic for our specific school. We were hosting events on Wednesdays for teachers, Wellness Wednesdays, and every week I would change this digital signboard so that they would know what was happening in the media center. We did everything from yoga to Italian sodas to hot cocoa. And so everybody was invited to come on Wednesdays into the library for some fun, for some Wellness Wednesdays. Health steps. If you don't have any inclination to graphic design, this image was actually shared with another teacher librarian in Alpine, and I just made my modifications to it for our particular library. But essentially, if you don't know how to do this, a good idea is to find somebody that does, and either have them teach you or have them share with you. But these are the signs that we used, and again, the template was generated by a colleague of mine, which I thought I was super appreciative of. Here's another of the very same design that we did for signage, and we're back at the sign that we worked on with just an image and some text. So hopefully this was helpful for you. I will leave, I'm going to head back to my reference page here. I will leave a couple of references. Pexels is one of my favorite websites to get images on. Another one that's pretty great is Unsplash, which we talked about. The Noun Project has a lot of icons and other really cool items that you might think of just, for little thumbnails or whatever. So this is a really great website there. And then if you want to pay, and I always start looking at iStock, quite frankly, just to see what's out there. iStock is the pay per use. You usually buy, instead of a subscription, what you do is you buy credits, and you can see, oh, this image is worth 3 credits. This image is worth 1 credit. This it totally depends on how fancy those images are and what the proprietary rights are. So iStock you could use at some point. And then my very favorite font sites are 1001 Free Fonts, all free. The second one is Dafont, D-A-F-O-N-T, and same thing. They're almost identical the way that they kind of process, but you can find handwritten fonts, you can find game fonts, you can find army fonts, you can find Valentine's fonts. So lots of stuff there. And then my most recent favorite is Font Squirrel. And Font Squirrel is awesome because they have commercial licensed items as well. And most are free, but some link to paid, but you can kind of dabble around there. And hopefully this has been helpful for you. And if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me at Cedar Valley, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.